I told him the parameters. So I told him I said he probably thought it was 45 minutes. So the two of them were talking about 45 questions. Yeah.
Well,
Half hour to 40 minutes. I told him he could go to an hour, but 45 minutes is fine. Whatever he wants to do.
I think we can start.
Evening, everybody. We're glad you're here. This is a really important topic, so hope we can find some ways to work together in this area. First of all, as we've been telling you about your parking, bring your plate to the front, and in the future you'll know. You just go to the front, say Spirit on Tap, get your plate, and you're good. We have a basket up front for any contributions that just covers meals for our guests or sometimes mileage. Our purpose is to gather together in a setting where challenging and complex current cultural and religious faith issues are presented, shared, and discussed. We are not here to judge, but rather to create a safe space for significant conversation. So please be respectful of others and the views they express. There will be a presentation of 45 minutes to an hour. The remainder of our time will be used for questions and comments. And although we want to encourage good discussion, please do not dominate the conversation to a point where others are unable to share their thoughts. Please raise your hand, and I will bring the microphone around to you and ask a very smart, concise question or make a comment so that others have a chance to participate. We believe that if we hold this format, everyone will leave here enriched. We would also like to thank the DoubleTree, which is the #1 ranked Hilton family hotel in the world. And we're very, very proud of that, very excited. We thank them for their generosity. They give us this site for free. So that is a great gift for which we are very grateful. So now I would like to introduce Dr. Harry Serio, who will introduce our speakers for the evening.
Thank you, Steve. We're used to seeing Bob Stewart up here making these preliminary announcements, but Bob's kind of under the weather these days, so he's not here. Thank you, Steve, for your technical support as well. It's just also a reminder that if you're not on our mailing list, there are 2 sign-up sheets on either end of the front tables here. Please put your name and email on there if you want to receive notices of our future programs. And we do run several programs, not just Spirit on Tap, but Soul Cafe and Contemplative Spirituality, which meets in Kutztown. And we also have started a book discussion group on the Brothers Karamazov. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, get on our mailing list and we'll tell you all about it. Also, there are plates here for your donations because we do have incidental expenses, so we welcome your contributions as well. Some of you may know that the city of Reading has had a reputation of being one of the poorest cities in the country. We're not poor in our outreach to help these people who live in the city. At a November meeting, Craig Poole, who is the general manager of the DoubleTree, spoke about what they do here to reach out to the poor, the homeless, people who are looking for a second chance. Today, we have another program that we're going to concentrate on. Now, Paul Zanone and Sandra Jones are very special people because they've come from some difficult and turbulent background, but they have used their own background to reach out and to help people in the city of Reading. And this is a way of giving back, and they will tell you more about that. So we will have a presentation of about 45 minutes, and then a question and answer for about a half hour. So thank you all for coming, and here is Paul and Sandra.
Thank you very much. So, for the people who don't know us, our organization is called Providing Hope. We help out people that are in need in the city of Reading. Also, I grew up in Delaware County, so we go out that way. And
I'm Sandra, and I grew up in Lancaster County, so every weekend we go out towards that way as well.
so we see people when we go out those ways, we reach out to them also. But we like to talk about how we got to where we're at. And with us, we come through a program called ACA, Adult Children of Alcohol Dysfunctional Families, which has helped me out tremendously. We talk about our childhoods and what kind of led us here. So for me, I was the baby of the family. I have 3 older brothers, 2 older sisters. My earliest memories are of me being about 2 years old, being in a crib. My mom sleeping in the bedroom, my dad sleeping on the couch, and I have brothers in another room, sisters in another room, so there was a lot of isolation going on. But I didn't really understand what was going on. My next oldest brother was about 4 years older than me, so slowly my family was getting smaller and smaller. And you don't realize until years down the road you start doing work is that can create abandonment issues, even though it's a natural part of life. You know, your brothers get older, your sisters get older, they move on. So my next oldest brother, Dave, he was 4 years older than me, so when he left, it kind of left me in the house. So I was in my room by myself, my mom was in her room by herself, and my dad was on the couch. Every form of abuse possible went on in that house. My thoughts were, you always hear the saying, be seen, not heard. For me, I always felt like they didn't want to see me or hear me. They wanted nothing to do with me. My parents were older when they had me, so I think my dad was about 45. My mom was, maybe 36 or 37. They were tired, they were older. So elementary school for me was a safe haven. When I would go there, it was getting me out of the house. But then once I got into middle school, we had 5 different elementary schools going to one middle school. And all of a sudden I lost my safe haven. My peers were growing physically, they were growing socially, and I wasn't. I started doing drugs at a really young age, because like I said, I was the baby of the family, so everybody thought, it'd be cool, here you're gonna get high, you're gonna get high. All the older kids in the neighborhood, so probably between 8 and 10 years old, I was already doing drugs. By the time I was 14 years old, I was working in a restaurant. The people I was working with were all between 18 and 25 years old, so then I had connections. I was able to buy, sheets of acid, pounds of pot, whatever I wanted. It was a weird area to grow up. I didn't have a lot of consequences. I learned how to manipulate at a very young age, because I've seen things that my brothers and sisters would do, and they would get caught and get the crap knocked out of them. My brother Dave used to climb out the bedroom window, onto the electrical lines, onto the air conditioner, and finally onto the ground to get out of the house. I would just walk past my dad, and if he woke up, where you going, boy? I would be like, I'm going to get something to eat, I'm doing this. I would write a note, got up early, went fishing. That way if he ever came in at 5 o'clock in the morning, I wasn't home, I kind of excuse. It didn't matter in my house whether I was a good kid or a bad kid, I still got the crap knocked out of me. If I had a cold and I was coughing, it was, you better do something about that, boy. And I'd be like, I'm sick, I got a cold, and it would be cursing, belittling me, putting me down. So like I said, when I got into middle school, I kind of lost my safe haven, lost my way, and then I started getting bullied in school also. I didn't have great hygiene habits. Girls didn't find me attractive, or the girls that did find me attractive, I wasn't interested in them, and I think subliminally, I just didn't feel worthy. So I started skipping school a lot. I still did good in school. I still had good grades. I did like to learn and stuff like that. By the time I got to high school, it just kept getting worse and worse. Like I said, I was young, but I knew a lot of people in their late teens, early 20s. I had all the connections. I had all the parties. So something I learned as I got older too was me being the drug dealer, I was the go-to guy, and that was my popularity. And these are things like you don't even realize why it's going on until you get older. I did pretty good as far as a child of staying out of trouble and stuff like that. I didn't get a lot of trouble. Like I said, I didn't have to manipulate. But once I turned 18 years old, that's when things started snowballing. I started getting more and more trouble. I got broke into, I got drunk one night, broke into a community hall, stole some stuff out of there. When you're young and you get in trouble for the first time, they're more than willing to work with you and give you a second chance. I got ARD, and then, there was, just things started building up. I had a couple of assaults, I had a couple of drug dealing charges. So meanwhile, I'm 18 years old, I'm in this dysfunction, I run away from home. We ended up getting an apartment, me and my girlfriend, and little did know is you attract what you are. So my girlfriend was also growing up in an abusive household, which I think subliminally I knew. She never admitted it to me. Years down the road I found out. And then we brought kids into the world. And I was a drug dealer. I didn't work. I raised them. My dad was abusive towards me. I became my father all over again. I was abusive. I was jealous. I was controlling. So not only was I abusive towards my ex-wife, I was also abusive towards my kids. I was a rageaholic. But I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. When I would get in trouble and get a drug dealing charge, they would make me go to NA meetings and AA meetings. And I would go in there and I just wanted them to sign a little paper because I didn't want nothing to do with these people. It felt cliquish to me. I never felt welcome, but I know now that was for me. I wasn't ready. I had the ego. We had the kids. I ended up getting a drug dealing charge, I think, when I was 26, went away for 2 years. I had my ex-wife bring drugs into the prison, so I sold drugs in the prison. I ran a store in the prison. Everywhere I went, when I had the opportunity to get help, I talked the talk, I didn't walk the walk. I went to programs. But things were, slowly embedding in my head and stuff like that. I can't say everything I've ever done in my life has been horrible. I made some good choices over the years, but in the end, I don't go by percentages, and I would say 90%. I was a monster. 10%, I might have some kind of empathy and really cared. So last time I went to prison for 5 years. I got clean in prison, which is a great accomplishment. When people go to prison, you do some crazy things in there. So my cellmate, he was taking Geodon, which was a psych med, so I was crushing that and snorting that. People will crush on coffee and snort that. You'll do anything to make yourself still feel like you're getting high because that's how powerful the addictions are. So one night I had a bad reaction and I got down on my hands and knees. It was around the 4th of July. I remember I actually got clean before that, but so many different experiences. The 4th of July was always a big holiday for me. I used to take my kids to as many shows as I could. And I got down on my hands and knees, I prayed to God. I actually went up into one of the cells in the second tier looking out the windows, which you can barely see out the windows, are fogged up, looking for fireworks. Just, I wanted some kind of normalcy. I got down on my hands and knees, and I prayed to God, I was just so at my bottom. But, when you're in prison, a lot of people find God, a lot of people get disciplined in prison and stuff like that. In my household growing up, I remember going to Sunday school. I remember walking up the sidewalk. I remember the bushes. I still remember everything vaguely. Don't ever remember going into the building. And that always concerned me because I always have a really good memory, and I don't know why I don't have that memory. Like I said, there's every kind of abuse going on in my household. I know there's been things in churches, stuff like that, and I don't know why I don't remember. But my brother, he went to church, and then he stopped going, so I stopped going. So church was out of my life pretty early in life. My dad would mock the church. He would say when he was a kid growing up, his church was the outhouse. My mom, I didn't know much about her. She was submissive to my dad. My dad was very abusive towards her. But I remember finding Bibles, like old Bibles, which were really cool, in the cabinet, in the bookshelf. And I would open them up and check them out. They had all the cool pictures, stuff like that. I didn't know anything about the Bible. It was just like, put that away. That's not for kids. kids, stuff like that. So there's really no church, no spirituality in the house at all. And then the same thing growing up. You know, I would go to churches here and there, stuff like that, but never really, you know, felt anything that, you know, was for me. So after I got out of prison, you know, like I said, I got clean in prison. I got out when I was in prison. Like I said, you find God in prison and you have so much time on your hands. So I read the Bible constantly. My prayers at night, my prayers before I went to bed would last 15 minutes long. I remember times I'd fall asleep at night praying. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and say, well, I didn't finish my prayer. And I'd start praying again, fall asleep again, wake up again and say, I didn't finish my prayer because you're so disciplined. I'd do devotionals, I'd underline them, I'd be sending them to people that I think this relates to them and stuff, and then you get out of prison, and slowly that fades away, because life goes on, there's so much going on. You know, also when you get out of prison, they say you get institutionalized, and that can happen very quickly. The first time I did 2 years in prison, and I remember I went to CVS to buy shampoo, and I was looking over my shoulder because I thought somebody was going to accuse me of stealing. When I got out of prison the last time, I had to do 5 years. I remember going into Redner's over in Kenhorst and looking for peanut butter. And I saw this whole big shelf with all this different peanut butter, and I was overwhelmed. In prison, you get chunky or you get creamy. And just little things like that, and you have to deal with getting out of prison. So when I did get out of prison, I overcompensated with my kids. I wanted to make it up to my kids. My plan was to go back home. I was from Philly area, Delaware County. My son they actually picked me up from 30th Street Station. My oldest son was really skinny. He was throwing up blood. He was smoking K2. He had been smoking K2 before I even went away. I tried to talk to him to know about. So when I finally came to Reading, the plan was to go back to the Philly area, get an apartment, let him move in with me so I could save his life when I couldn't save my own life. I remember walking through the streets of Reading. I came through New Person Center and Ken Grill. I remember walking the Albernia Trail, and I remember asking myself, this is freedom? Because after being in prison, being controlled of what you do when you wake up, and you know, you go out to the yard, you go to your meal, you read a book. My ex-wife would call me up, when you coming back home? My son was, you know, in his 20s, you know, I'm having problems with him and stuff like that. My son would be like, when you coming home? Everybody wanted me to be their savior, and I couldn't even save myself. So I made it out of prison for about 8 months, and then I violated because I couldn't follow rules. Because when I had a PO telling me what to do, when I had a PO telling me you need to be home at this time, you can't go here, you can't do this, you need to ask for permission for everything, it was my dad all over again telling me what to do. And my attitude was, you're going to tell me what to do, I'm going to do the exact opposite. So they violated me. I was out for about 8 months. I went back into Berks County Prison for 6 months. Got out for another 8 months and violated again, and went back for 9 months. But meanwhile, all this stuff was going on. I was going to a parole group, and they were planting seeds and telling me I need to get in touch with my feelings, I need to get in touch with my emotions, which obviously I never had any idea what any of that stuff was, because I was self-medicating before I knew what self-medicating was. I found a group in prison called Emotions Anonymous, and I fell in love with that. And what I did last time I went to prison, instead of me going out the yard and working out, and you know, it was all about me, I started taking every Bible study, every class, trying to learn as much as I can, reading self-help books. And I asked my sister, I said, can you write all these places, like In Touch Magazine, Beyond Today, Out Out, I read all these places, so when I got home, they were all waiting for me when I got there. So I started trying to have a peace in my life where I didn't just get up in the morning, I didn't just listen to what everybody else was saying. You should be doing this, you should be doing that, you need to be working 60 hours a week, so you're not out there doing things you shouldn't be doing. I finally started, you know, doing some self-care. So one of the first phone calls I made when I got out was to Emotions Anonymous. They said the closest meeting was an hour and a half away, so it was really disappointing. But having God work in my life, one day I was sitting down reading Merchandiser, and I came across a group called ACA, and that's Adult Children of Alcoholic Dysfunctional Families. And for me, it was different because we deal with learned childhood behavior. You know, my dad was an abuser, my dad was an alcoholic, he was a gambling addict, and we carry on traits a lot of times, no matter how hard we try not to. So that's part of the story I tell people. Getting clean is great. Having 5 years clean is great, but if you don't do all the other work, it doesn't matter whether that addiction comes back or not. The drugs, the alcohol, sex addiction come back, gambling can come back, rageaholic come back. There's so many addictions that can destroy our lives. At the ACA program, I have two friends of mine who were dating in the program, and they say, when you're in a program, you shouldn't be dating, you should be working on yourself. So unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. They were involved with an organization called Common Ground Recovery Community, and they have a free meal every Sunday on Trinity Church at 6th and Washington. And my buddy, both of them were volunteering there, and he said, I'm not going to go anymore because she's there. And I said, well, I'll go with you to support you. And when I went there, I fell in love with the place. So, before that had happened, my truck broke down. And I had to start riding the bike, and I hated it. And I, of course, worked at Buca di Beppo. So I'd hop on the trail down by Canal Street Pub, and I would ride the trails back and forth to work. I was able to ride all the way down to Bear Park, cross the Schuylkill Avenue Bridge, and then go to Brings Mill, and then come back up by Penn State. But that's when I first started seeing people sleeping on benches, sleeping under the bridges and tents. And I started carrying power bars. I started asking, are you hungry? Do you need something? So after I went to Common Ground, I was learning more and more about what the community needs. So I started reaching out on Craigslist and asking for things. And that's when Sandy came into my life.
So I'm going to back up and tell you a little bit about my childhood and upbringing and everything. So I grew up with two older brothers. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I grew up in church though. We were in church every Sunday. My mom's uncle was a pastor, Pentecostal pastor, and so when church doors were open, we were there. Whether it was 5 days a week, whatever, we were there. But just because you go to church or believe in a higher power or something, it always doesn't mean you have the best life behind closed doors, because it was completely different. There's more emotional abuse going on. I remember growing up, I was a good child, grew up playing, softball, different things and everything. But it got to the point where my mom would come to me and she'd be like, oh, your dad did this. And my dad would come to me and it'd be like, oh, your mom did this. So I got the nickname referee from a couple of my uncles, and even to this day, they still, when they call me or I see them when I go back to visit my parents, it's like, hey, referee, how are you? So just living with that and growing up throughout my school years and everything, being belittled, called names and put down. And then eventually getting into relationships and meeting boys and everything. Ended up finding someone that I say just like my dad. And what I mean by that, it was emotional, verbal abuse. I can probably count on one hand how many times I was hit, but it was, I would leave for work I had to be at work at 8, so I would leave at 7:30. My freedom was he worked third shift, so I knew from 11 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning, you're supposed to be sleeping, but I knew that was my time, just to get my stuff done, because when I came home from work, he'd be sleeping. So if I left work, I was done at 3:30. If I didn't get home by 4, the door would be locked and I would have to stay out of the house till 11 o'clock and wouldn't be allowed back in. Or if I did, as the years progress, when you're with someone, they say they're sorry. And growing up, I learned to forgive and everything, but when you're in an abusive relationship, you take so much and then they know how to make you feel like it's all your fault. They turn around and put on you, and that's exactly what was going on. I would, like I said, if I wasn't back home from work at 4 o'clock and I would go in the house, I would there sometimes get hit. he was a hoarder, so we were on the couch, him at one end, me at the other end, and I would get yelled at, be called names, and I had to like stay on the couch. If I had to go to the bathroom, so be it. Like I could not get up, could not leave. He would sit there and eat in front of me. He would call me names. He would do anything. And I kept it a secret for a long time, 12 years putting up with it. And like I said, it's just, you're in that upbringing and you see it. My dad never hit my mom or anything, but you're just around that negativity so much that to me, it just felt normal. And then you say, I'm sorry, and then my way of thinking is, yeah, you're right, it is my fault. I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm this, I'm that. It is my fault. There were several times I had my stuff packed up, and I would text him and be like, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, I can't put up with this. And then I remember getting text messages, or he would come home from work and be like, but you did this. This is why I acted that way, because you. You know, like I said, it was just my way of thinking. And it was brainwashed, basically. So, jump forward. I had a job in Lancaster, even found a job down there working with autistic preschoolers in Chester County and everything. So, here, my coworkers love to celebrate birthdays, and I was never one to celebrate. I don't like attention on me. They were trying to decide what to make, like what kind of cake I liked and everything. And working in a high school, that's where CCIU has a set in a high school. They have vending machines. There was times that I couldn't pack a lunch because if he came home from work early and I didn't have my lunch pack also hidden in the car so he could see I actually had food and was eating, then I would, put money in the vending machine at school. And what do they have at vending machines? Pop-Tarts. So that's a lot of times what I would eat for lunch. And my coworker, I hid it so well, my coworker thought that I love Pop-Tarts so much that she wanted to make me a Pop-Tart birthday cake. But she actually handed it to me and presented it to me at work the one day. And I just lost it. And she didn't realize. She's like, what's wrong? I thought Pop-Tarts were your favorite. And I said, they're not. They're good, but they're not my favorite. I said, it's just something when you're not allowed to eat, or if someone's eating in front of you and that's what you had, that's something. Do I still struggle with stuff like that? Absolutely I do. There's times, I remember going to the doctors for possible breast cancer, and someone that so called I love you, couldn't even go in the waiting room with me. He sat out in the car, and they give me, medication, and of course I had a reaction to the medication, and so I had to wait 30 minutes. I stood there and argued with the nurse. I said, I cannot stay an additional 30 minutes to make sure there's no side effects. And they kept asking why, and I'm like, no, I just gotta go home, I'll be fine, let me go home. I knew in my head that when I got out to that parking lot and out to that car, I was in for it. So eventually, I had to wait the 30 minutes, and when I went outside, he was out of the car waiting for me. Not to say, are you okay? It was a lot. What took you so long? I'm tired. And then when I got home, it just continued, and he sat there and ate. I wasn't allowed to eat, went through all that. So, you're supposed to take off work after a couple days. I didn't. I powered through it. And even to this day, I go to work if I'm sick. Well, not now because of COVID. But if I'm hurt or something, I don't ask for help. I will just power through it. Long story short, I had my gallbladder removed. I went back to work in 2 days. I was like, that's just, as I do see a therapist now, she talks, it's kind of walking through the steps, but there's little things that still trigger me. So, to catch up, there was times I prayed towards the end of the 12 years. We didn't have heat in the house at all. And if anyone knows me, 70-degree weather and below, I'm freezing. So we would cover it with blankets. literally breathing, you could see your breath. Windows would, you couldn't even see out the windows, they'd be ice and everything. So when he left for work, I would turn on the heated blanket that we had. But, you know, if I'm asleep and he came home from work early, I called heck for it because run up his electric bill. Also, towards the end of it, we had no running water. So, of course, that was my fault. Everything was my fault. And he made me believe that it all happened because of me. So his way of solving that was me finding empty gallon jugs. And then what I had to do was put them in a crate and fill them up, whether I did it quietly at work, when I went to the gym, because I would go to the gym, that was, you know, I would work out, not eat, trying to lose weight. Obviously, you know, get a shower and everything. When I go to my parents' house, my mom knew what was going on. I told her not to say anything, and she didn't. So not only filled the jugs, I would have to carry them into the house. So you're talking about 4 1-gallon jugs in a crate. So eventually, it just kept getting worse, and I got to the point, yes, I believe in God, I pray and everything, but on my way to work, on my way home to work, I would cry. And I even actually considered committing suicide, because it gets in your head that everything is your fault when it's not. But I said, God, you got to do something to give me the strength, give me the courage to get out of this relationship that I'm in, or just take my life, let me crash into a tree or something. Like, I even thought about doing it myself, I'm not gonna lie. It's just, when you're in that much, 12 years. So one evening, I was sitting there, and I remember it was around Christmas time. This was it was Christmas Eve, December 2016, I believe. My mom and I were finishing up Christmas shopping. We were over in New York, and I saw a family, mom with 3 children. She was homeless. So I thought, well, let me go back in and see, you know, if I can just find like a Barbie doll or something for them. And here came out, I gave it to the mom, and the mom's like, you wouldn't happen to have any clothes? And I'm like, actually, I was collecting clothes. So I was like, actually I do, but I started telling her, like, I'm in Lancaster, da-da-da. She's like, I'll wait here if you want to go home and get me clothes and everything for my kids. And I'm like, do I take the chance? Sure. So the mom gave me sizes and everything, and I went home, put a package, went back to New York, and I gave the family, they were there, and I gave them the clothes and everything. So I started helping out families that were in need, not necessarily homeless or anything. And then it was just by word of mouth, or even by like Craigslist, like people post stuff and meet people and whatnot. And I even met a single father who had 3 kids, and I spent out of my pocket paying his bill over $5,000 trying to save him, because being in an abusive relationship and everything, I was trying to save everyone, and I was doing whatever I could. Will I ever see that $5,000? Absolutely not. That's my loss, but you know what? I'm able to move forward from that. Even in an abusive relationship, he took all my money. I started with nothing. When I left him, I had 0. But here, looking through Craigslist, I had a friend reach out to me, and she said, Sandra, can you help a friend of mine? I'm like, absolutely. What does she need? She needed clothes. And she's like, she put them on. I said, sure, just give her my number. And she said, no, I don't, can you do it quietly? I'm like, well, how am I going to, find her? So she said, she put it out on Craigslist. So that's what got me on Craigslist and everything. And as I was looking for the friend, his ad was popping up. And remember, I'm praying to God in tears like something just happens. So his ad's popping up looking for power bars, looking for this. And So I'm sitting there and I'm not, you give me a computer, I know nothing really about it. I know how to turn it on and off, that's it. But I'm like, why does it keep popping up? Because on Craigslist, you have to hit the ad for it to come up. So my mom and her brilliant idea, she's like, why don't you just respond? And I was like, I don't know who this person is. So I responded, I reached out and I said, do the people you help need clothes? And then he responded and he said, if you want to know, why don't you come to Common Ground and think, see? And that ended up being our first date. So, but yeah. So it's a lot. In the past, I was doing helping others. I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it trying to save people, trying to overcompensate, just doing it all for the wrong reasons and everything. But since he introduced me to ACA, when he first told me about it, I was like, well, I don't want to go there. I don't have a drug problem. Like, that's what my reaction was. Well, and then when I got there, I'm like, it wasn't just about drugs. It was about being in a dysfunctional family and everything. So I was able to tell my story and share it, because I would never in the past be able to stand up here and tell it. But now I feel comfortable. As we get in the presentation, you'll see, like on the streets, I'm able to talk more with females. And it's a shame because you see more and more females that are in abusive relationships and they don't have nowhere to go. And I just try to be a voice for them. Being in abuse for 12 years, it's sad. And I had one person tell me, I don't know how to fight the game, but I'm sorry, you're in a 12-year abuse of any, doesn't matter how long it is, that's not a game, it's life or death. Do not tell me I don't know how to play a game. Like, that just took my breath away. But out of that, and like Paul said, we have an organization now, so.
Yeah, so, sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so being at Common Ground, we would bring items of food there. When we started going out, she would bring clothing there. It started out very small first. I was actually on food welfare myself, and I would pay for food with the food stamps. I would go to the grocery outlet up on North Fifth Street Highway, and once in a while they would reduce prices down only 10 cents an item. So I bought like 700 boxes of Power Bars. I started carrying stuff around with me. So we're at Common Ground. I think we probably topped out about 120 items there. They were probably averaging about 40 people. Then coronavirus hit, and the world got turned upside down. We were asked to, we first went out to the parking lot. They tried to do everything out in the parking lot, and we were asked to leave the parking lot. So I was very resentful, definitely held a grudge, but God was working. And it's just sometimes just being in the moment, and things will work themselves out. So we went over to Court Street and we started setting up behind the Madison building, the little park there. A couple of people I was in ACA with started coming and helping out. We really didn't think we needed volunteers at that point. I would load the car up or whatever. She would drive the car. I'd walk down along the river to get there. Life was very simple, and that's where I thrived the most. Like I said, when I got out, I had 5 years clean. It was a great accomplishment, but in the end, it meant nothing. When I started getting out and going to different events and going to different places and different churches, and spiritual tap is part of that. So, one day I ran across where it was at, merchandise or Reading Eagle or whatever, and I came to it. It was actually in the ballroom, and I think it was about inner faith or something with Dale Davis. And it just meant a lot to me because I try to live my life, and the program kind of teaches me don't be judgmental, and just getting out and experiencing life. And I think a lot of that with me is being isolated from a kid, being in my room all the time, being in prison for so long, being in a room. They used to call me mentally ill in prison because I was up in Albion or Lake Erie, and if the yard was open, I'd be out. And maybe 10 of us would go out during the winter, it'd be like 0 degrees, minus 12 degrees, snowing, and I'd just be walking the track. And at halftime, everybody else would go, and I'd be the only one in the yard, and guards had to stay out there just for me. And people would call me mentally ill. But it's like, what's more mentally ill, staying in a cell or staying on a block of steel and concrete, or trying to be out and have some kind of fresh air, some kind of, so, when we got moved over to there, it slowly started growing. They put a fence up around the Madison building, they started working on that, and moved across the street. Part of Providing Hope was getting out there and finding out what other organizations were doing, trying to get information to them, and designing a flyer so people knew where to go. And we would ask the community, we would ask the people we're serving, is there other places, can we write this down, stuff like that. And then Sandra one time brought up,
So I said, we're advertising for every other organization, why don't we advertise ourselves, make a graphic? And so that's exactly what we did, and Providing Hope just exploded.
So now we're serving average 80, 90 people. We started out like at the Madison spot, bringing about 120 items, letting people take 3 items of food. It was amazing. People were showing up just for 3 items of food. But the main thing was trying to talk to people and then walking the streets and handing out the flyers and telling our stories to people. We had one guy, we were at a community meal, 9th and Chestnut Mennonite Church, and this guy had trust issues. So I kind of told him what I've been through. He's like, you don't understand what I've been through. So I told him about some of my trust issues, and he was like, wow, we all have trust issues. We all come from different, ways where we develop those kind of trust issues and stuff. So, but that's what we try to do. We try to get out there. We try to relate to people. We've been in their shoes, might not be exactly their shoes, and just show them there's a better way of life. We kayak all the time. We're mountain biking. We're hiking, and part of our kayaking trip is we get off at Heritage Park, and we'll see homeless people down there, and they're like, wow, you guys do everything. And I say, well, there's no reason why you can't either. It's like if you get a job, it doesn't have to burn a hole in your pocket. Save your money, get a place, get a car. I always tell people, get a truck. You can always make money with a truck. Just try to encourage people, and basically just try to, live life by example. And we try not to tell people what to do, and that's why when we do the food giveaway and stuff like that, we don't shove stuff in people's face. We don't try to tell people what they need. We hand them a bag of food. We let them pick out what they want. A lot of food banks will hang in a box, and half the stuff might be stuff they don't like. We display the stuff out and let people take what they want. But the main thing is trying to talk to people. The people who come to our giveaway, we're non-judgmental. We don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, gay, straight, whatever, as long as you aren't projecting your views on other people. So I guess we can start the first video and show a little bit about what Providing Hope does.
This is from 2019, September 2019, when we started Providing Hope until now.
These are the slides.
So it just shows some of our volunteers and how much it's grown over the years. Like I said, we're serving at 90 people. We start out letting people take 3 items of food, then on up to 5 items of food, then 7, then 8, then 10, then 12, then 15, and now we can let people take 20 items of food. We get Panera Bread, we get Panera Bread desserts, we get a donation from a school that wants to remain anonymous, we get milk, we get fruit, we get veggies. We're not a nonprofit. We don't get funded, we don't get compensated, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to come at this a different way. The city of Reading is a very giving city, but unfortunately, I think people get into it with the right heart. My therapist even told me, he said, why don't I go back to school and become a counselor, become a drug and alcohol counselor. For me, I don't want to be stuck behind a seat. I don't want to, I want to be out there in the streets, because that's where the people who really need the help are. So. So unfortunately, sometimes when you do the things that we're doing, people come in with different ideas. And like I said, we just try to explain to people why we do the things we do. You have to have discernment. The Bible says give freely what's freely given you, but you just can't keep giving and giving and giving. Why would somebody want to get clean if you're giving them everything? You get food stamps, you get $200 a month in food stamps, and even us, we enable people because we're giving them food, we're giving them material needs. We're also talking to them, we're also saying we've been in your shoes, we're also relating to them because if you get all the food you need, you go out and start your food stamps, and then you get money for drugs. We also make people come to us. We don't hand deliver stuff. If you need a tent or something like that, we tell people to come up to the tent in South Street Playground. We'll take it out of the original packaging, we'll ruffle it up, we'll stick it in a trash bag. That way it makes it harder for people to sell. And I think the community in the end realizes what we do, and that gives us a little more respect too, because it's not like we're just giving you something and you go, we do care about you. We don't want to see you in this tent. We want to see you get off the street, but we're also not going to let you sit here in 0-degree weather and not have the proper resources. And that's part of working with all the organizations too. If you're a Hope Rescue Mission, they have to kick you out, give them a flyer, and tell them, they can at least help you out with a tent. So, sure, that's one. Sure.
So the next video is going to be about clothing. You'll see the volunteers setting up clothes because at our food giveaway, not only do we hand out clothes, food, we also have clothing and miscellaneous other items for people to pick from. We do try to limit it to like 4 or 5 articles of clothing, only because we do serve like 90 people. Unfortunately, you do get some that like to bag it up, and so we have to step in and we couldn't do Providing Hope without volunteers and without donations. That's right. So basically it just showed like clothes, like I said, clothes being set up at the giveaway. We do the food in the front, in the back we have clothing, and we do have someone that volunteers to work, be there, and they tell them, like I said, 4 to 5 articles. We also, once a month, do a big giveaway, and that's where we hand out toiletries. They get travel size, soap, toothbrushes, shampoo, razors, socks, deodorants, just necessities that people need. And to be honest with you, Providing Hope isn't about the clothes or the food. It's about building that relationship with the people we serve, the people that are on the streets, like Paul was saying. It's letting them know that they're not forgotten, that they're not any less value because they don't have a $50,000 house. If they live in a tent, they're just as important to us as anyone is. So that's what it is. You build relationships, you build friendships with the individuals. And we send text messages out, and we're like, hey, hope all is well. And it's just knowing that, that they're being cared for. And for volunteers, we have a good core. There's probably 25 individuals. I send a text message out and say, hey, are you coming? I think our highest was at our Celebration of Life. We do a Celebration of Life once a year. We topped out at 33 volunteers. And that's just honoring the people that we know that passed away in the community. So once again, like I said, Providing Hope isn't just Paul and I. We need people that donate, people that come help us on a Sunday, give their time just a little bit. So a couple years, I would say 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, there was an individual someone on the mountain said that he knows this person that needs a jacket, and he's probably like, I don't know, 6'10", very tall, very skinny. And so, we went to Goodwill, Op Shop, and all the different places to look for a jacket for him. And we met him at the senior center, and that was the very first time. And he started coming to our giveaway, and I never knew how much Providing Hope meant to him until one time, he kept coming, and he would ask for clothes and everything, and I would give it to him. He'd be so appreciative. One time we were sitting at home, and at 10:30 at night, my cell phone rang, and it said St. Joe's Hospital. And I'm like, uh-oh, like what happened? It was this doctor calling me that an individual put providing hope down as an emergency contact person. And, oh, I just got chills. So here, it's just, like I said, it's just building a relationship, building that friendship with people. So here I remember driving, I was on my way to Lancaster to my parents' house, and a friend of his reached out to tell me that he passed away. And here what happened, or not only did a friend of his, I got a phone call from the coroner actually telling me if people don't step up, you'll have to come get his stuff. And I called Paul and I'm like, what do we do? So I spent hours searching online for his family. And here I found a brother in Westchester. But his brother wanted nothing to do with him. He called me back and he said, that's great, thanks for the info, but I no longer talk to him. You can do what you want. So, I talked to the coroner and I was trying to get, and she's like, well, someone came and already cleaned out his apartment. And usually, unfortunately, that's usually what happens when someone passes away. People come out of woodworks and everything. But his personal belongings we picked up in a grocery bag, a cell phone, a wallet, and a keychain. That's all we had left in his name. So we were honest. I called his brother who wanted nothing to do with him, and I said, we wanted to do a celebration of life. I said, if I told him he wanted to come, and I said also, in this wallet is $127. I said, would you like it? What would you like us to do with it? We feel like, it's not ours. And his brother said, you guys helped him out, put it towards providing hope. So we call it the Guy Winarski Celebration of Life. We took that money and we used it to buy things, so we could have a celebration. Like the first year we had a cake with his name on it, and that's something we do every year in honor of him. And it's just eye-opening for us, because like I said, you never know how much, not just providing your last words to someone, how much they can leave an impact on someone. So it really opened up my eyes. Like I said, his brother, it's a shame his brother wanted nothing to do with him. We did give the keychain to his good friend who was honored to accept it. So, and his last request was, he said, Sandra, I want chocolate chip cookies. And I said, unfortunately, we're not home. We can't bring them to you. But I know it was honored at that celebration of life. I had received a phone call from one of our volunteers and said, can I, just out of the blue, Sandra, can I make a dessert? I said, absolutely. What would you want to make? She said, chocolate chip cookies. Yes, absolutely.
We have these pictures.
So here's some of our donators. A lot of the grocery outlets, they will donate to us. Like Paul was saying, they will give us 10 cents for an item. Now they donate for free. A lot of places will.
So a lot of these pictures are from grocery outlets. We kind of got our start up on North Fifth Street. Certain grocery outlets will work with us more than others. Two are in Lancaster, one's in Coatesville. Shillington just got a new owner, so they're like fully on board with us. North Fifth Street had a new owner, just got another new owner, they're fully on board with us. Part of providing hope too is we do not, or we try not to accept monetary donations. We put out in the community what we need, and the community steps up like incredibly. We do, take monetary donations. People want to give and stuff like that, and we try to make sure that goes to what people need. We also try to tell people we don't really want new stuff. We appreciate the generosity of people, but sometimes you give somebody a tent, and they could, destroy that tent within a day, 2 days, sometimes never even use it at all. We gave one person a tent, told him make sure you don't throw any food in it. He disappeared, never came back, and I would go by her once in a while, check on it, we always yell out, yo, you okay, you need anything? When I finally did open up, there was a big hole in it because he put a snack bag in there and something ate through it, so they can get destroyed pretty quick and all. So, but as you know, people on the street, if people get stuck on the street, we might start them off with something, small, something ratty or whatever, but if they get stuck out there, we'll give them more and more. And like I said, try to keep that relationship, and that's why we try to have our personal phone numbers, have people reach out to us. We have flyers here on the end of the tables that have all our information, phone numbers, Facebook page. We went down to Florida recently, and that's part of like this. This is our personal life. And for me, it's like, if you do the right thing, you start following rules, and God's working in your life, or a higher power is working in your life, good things will happen. I had one gentleman who, we met him at Heritage Park, and I asked him if he needed anything. He said no. A lot of people were standoffish at first, and as I got to know him and stuff, he told me I got into a fight with my wife. She filed a protection from abuse order. I didn't do it. We don't care whether you did it or not. We're all hurt, we're all damaged. Give people grace. But within 3 months, this guy was in the corner of a free meal at Common Ground, punching himself in the face. But he had said to me one time, he says, Paul, I want what you have. And for somebody to say that to me, it's like, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, nobody wanted anything to do with anything I had. I felt like a monster. Any room I walked into, I felt like I was the worst person in that room. I would sit down in groups and people would be like opening up and talking about their past and being open and honest. I couldn't do that. I couldn't be open and honest because you're going to hurt me. You're going to use what I say against me. But going to the ACA program and finally hearing it, I finally realized I need to tell my story. And that's what it says in our book. It says, how can my story become my biggest asset? So how can me being abused, how can me being belittled, how can me become that same person my father was, become my biggest asset? So if you're talking to somebody who is doing that, is abusing somebody, or is a drug addict, or is something like that, and you can relate to them and say, I was the same way. How much that means to somebody, because, it's so hard for us to open up and talk about what we've done, the damage we've done. So now I'm still on parole. I'll be on parole for another 6 or 7 years. I struggled with that greatly when I first got out, because like I said, it was my dad all over again. But as I started following rules, I started not doing whatever I wanted to do, and asking for permission. Now, if we want to go to Vermont, we go to Vermont. If we want to go to Florida, we go to Florida. We're talking about going to Puerto Rico and bringing her grandfather. He says, I never had a client who was allowed to go to Puerto Rico or out of the country or whatever. And he said, you put the paperwork in it, and I'll try to make it happen for you. He knows I still struggle. He knows I still have issues, but I talk about that stuff. And like there was one time where we were supposed to go up to Hickory Run the next night or the next day. He called me at 6 o'clock at night and said, I can't let you go. So I'm in my head saying, well, I'm going to go anyway. And I told him that. I said, this is what goes through my head. Like, I don't want to be that person, but I'm also going to be open and honest with you. So I always tell people, 50% of what comes out of my mouth, you might say, damn, this dude's dangerous, this dude needs to be locked up. But the other 50% should be, but he's got a good support group. He talks about these things, he gets these things out, and he doesn't act out on them. So another part of the spirituality is, for me, that's still a struggle. A lot of people, when something goes wrong in life, they get down on their hands and knees and they pray to God. For me, that's still a struggle, but I know God's put the right people in my life, and when I talk to people, I'm open, and I can put that out there to people. They'll say, Paul, we pray to God about this, or I know they're praying for me. And meeting Harry and Steve and everybody else, it's amazing. People, when I came to Reading in 2013, and how they're still in my life. I always tell people, a relationship, a conversation, something that happens, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, you just don't know how it's going to come to fruition or how it's going to work out, and how that might help somebody out in the future. So,
Thank you, Paul. We want to allow some time for questions. And Steve will take the microphone, and his mic will be live.
You just press that mute button. Okay. Anybody have a comment or question you want to offer here. And this is loud. so
Raise your hand and do not speak until you have a microphone.
Sandra, could you move your microphone down just a little bit?
Hi, is this okay? Yeah. All right. Hi, my name is Pat. I've known Paul and Sandra for many, many years. And first I want to just add something that you don't mention in your story, and that is that Paul and Sandra do all this while working regular jobs besides. As they said, they don't take any money from the donations. This is all volunteer work on their part. And it's pretty damn incredible. So what I wanted to ask you is, what things do you see on the street that aren't addressed, that are beyond your organization's goals? And is there anyone really able to reach this community? Because I know you're on the streets every night handing out snack bags. I have a feeling a lot of other homeless organizations may not be on the street. You know, they might be in Opportunity House or in Hope Rescue Mission, but not on the street necessarily. So what do you see that is hard to address?
So yeah, and that's like where being judgmental comes in. Like, you know, I'm working on programs, stuff like that. I know you're not supposed to be judgmental, but it can get that way because you kind of see a lot of what goes on out there in the community, and so many people fall through the, you know, cracks and stuff, and there's no perfect answer. I mean, we try to work with city government, we try to work with the other organizations. When we first started doing this, we got a lot of kickback. A lot of people say, we're already doing that, they need stuff, they can come to us. And it's like, well, we're the ones that out there, we're the ones in the streets, we're not funded. We're not asking for anything, but we're trying to partner with people where, you know, like, you know, Coalition Homelessness would give us tents, we would help out, you know, tents. But they would say, but we really want people to come through our doors because that way we can get them the proper resources, we can get them the mental health they need, we can get them, so we understand all that, and that's what we try to do. We give people a tent, we're also like, if they need something, you know, two of the main organizations we tell people to reach out to would be Coalition Homelessness and Salvation Army, because we've seen a lot of successes with them. I was in the Hope Rescue Mission a couple months ago, and the police were there, a lot of organizations there. So I heard from the other side too, and I kind of understand. Like, people are up on the mountain, stuff like that, they're littering, there's trash all over the place. I like to hike, I'm an environmentalist, I don't want to see that either, so we give somebody a tent, the first thing we do, we say to keep your area clean, maybe it'll leave you alone. 99% of people can't do that. It's the mental faculty, the addiction, that's their first priority. Get up in the morning, go panhandle, get money, and that's why we don't give money either. We don't take money, we don't give money. You know, we give people what they need. We're still enabling people to a certain extent. But what we hear from the police is we also don't want to become a safe haven city. Because then you get people from Pottstown coming here, people from Lancaster coming here, and then all of a sudden the homeless situation, the trash and everything evolves. But, you know, homeless has been around, you know, for centuries, for, you know, since life evolved. But there has to be successes here and there, stuff like that. For me, it's getting something where there's a little more grace. So you go to Hope Rescue Mission or one of the other organizations, they have a lot of rules. So like in my case, that's my dad all over again. I'd rather be out on the street, I'd rather be freezing rather than deal with that kind of stuff. So having a place, I don't totally agree with this, and I'm like, kind of like, they got the safe shoot up places and, you know, the safe get high places. I don't really agree with that, but we're seeing a lot of people die out there. You know, so we're just trying to, you know, find some kind of middle ground, work with the city government and stuff like that, so.
We have a question over here.
I wanted to say thank you for Sandra and Paul. When I was going to college, I needed help, and I was some days getting help from you guys in order to graduate, and that toilet paper helped me. I wanted to ask, I heard there will be changes in the food stamps from government, that they increase some, I think, SSI for people, and they're gonna maybe eventually take completely food stamps away. What's your plan for that?
I was also made aware of that, but we're just going to do the best that we can. And dealing with one grocery outlet, they actually told us as soon as they mark it down, people are buying it. So It's in God's hands, to be honest with you, relying on donators and just seeing what other stores want to get on board with us and just see. But our house is our stock, our storage, and we have overflow there. And it seems like 1 week we get nothing donated, I shouldn't say nothing, like 200 items donated, and we're taking a lot out from our house. But then the following week we get a couple of thousand items donated where we're bringing stuff into the house. So I feel like God always has a plan for us.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, over here.
Thank you. My name's Kerry. This is more just a comment, not so much a question. But I want to thank you each for your powerful testimonies and for what you're doing from that. Through so much suffering and trials that you persevered, each of you, where you were. And you gained so much character and hope. And that hope, joined together, is what you're doing, providing hope with the community. So it's awesome. And I don't doubt the same God you talked about raising you up as you are is going to continue to answer all the questions you might not have the answers to. He does. And so many people will continue stepping up and support others coming out in the street too. So thank you very much for what you do.
Hi, my name's Linda, and I also want to thank you for all that you do. There's something really powerful about joining you on the streets and writing and helping people. And when you had the last toiletry giveaway, there was a young man who was so excited that we gave him socks and mouthwash and toothpaste and toothbrushes. And for me, I can't imagine that being exciting, but it is. And it just shows the work that you're doing and the needs of our neighbors, so thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Doris. My sense is that you have managed to have contacts with restaurants and stores for their items that would normally be thrown away. I mean, restaurant, but you don't, take from the table, it goes to the trash. So you are avoiding a lot of food waste and going to the people who desperately need it. I applaud you. Thank you so much.
So part of that is everything we get pretty much is outdated. And that's why we get so much stuff. When the stores we go to have something that's outdated, they put it aside for us. A lot of these stores are dealing solely with us. And most of that is because of our attitude towards them. A lot of organizations come in there and they have an entitlement and they feel like, they should be given stuff. We buy hoagies from Sheets and we give it to the grocery outlets to show our appreciation. We'll make homemade meals, bring it to them, show our appreciation. We post on our page and we thank each individual for donating to us. And that's why we try to keep this organization the way it's running. Not having all this money running through the organization, but you do a little bit, you do a little bit, you do a little bit, and everybody comes together in the middle and what we can do. And especially being open up. And the socks.
We had one individual that we saw on the mountain and we just said, hey, how are you doing? And we knew at first he wanted nothing to do with us. So we just kept it simple, hey, how are you? And then one day he approached us and we started building that relationship with him. And he was on the streets and everything, and eventually got into a room and he said, you never know how much dry socks can save a person's life, because being out in a tent, your socks get wet, your feet are cold. And he said, but dry socks you guys gave saved my life. So it's just little things, little stories you hear. And there's times, it's not all fine and dandy. There's times we leave with headaches, we leave with stress and everything. But it's things like this and stories, little stories that keep us going and doing what we're doing.
Anyone else? We have time.
Thanks for doing what you do. You mentioned that you're not a nonprofit and have been asked with organizations that are sort of adjacent to what you to do certain things, and of course you work with all these organizations. Is there a plan to be a nonprofit, and if not, why?
So there is a plan to become a nonprofit. We don't want to become a typical nonprofit. And we've definitely had some mentors out there. Jeff from New Journey, they helped the community immensely. And he said we were to become a nonprofit, don't become a typical nonprofit food bank. And we never imagined what this would evolve to, the food bank part of it. But our plan is we're trying to get volunteers to take on those responsibilities, because I walk the streets every day, I walk through the woods every day, I walk under the bridges. I walk every chance I get to see if I run into people. I carry in my knapsack snacks and flyers, and like, are you hungry, you need something? One guy had a bedroll under his arm one day, and he was on my chair, like, hey, you need any food? He said, no, I'm okay. I said, why? I explained to him that he's a donator. He just never knows who you're going to talk to. Even our own volunteers, like, we're all damaged. It's not about the homeless people, it's everybody. You know, you could be executive of a corporation, and something like say might affect them and might help them. So, also, like I said before, a lot of food banks hand you a box, you don't know what you're getting. I used to go to the food banks and half the stuff I didn't eat. So I would stick it out front of my house and my neighbors take it. But you don't know if that happened everywhere. There's a lot getting thrown out. I mean, to me, I call it a throwaway world. And it's a shame that, you know, a lot of this stuff gets thrown out. So that's why, you know, if you have something you don't want, donate to an organization. We'll try to disperse it to the proper people, but also disperse it with the love, the grace, and relatability.
Anyone else?
I'm Nancy. Thank you both for telling your stories. I think you're both really exemplary teachers, and that's an asset to be able to explain why and how you're doing what you're doing. I have a couple questions, and I sort of hate to open this Pandora's box, but how does race play into all this in the city of Reading? Are there, I'm assuming that there are churches that address their people, whatever that means, and yet there are people in need that are on the street. Everyone is welcome, of course. But do you get more support? Do you have any issues with all that? How many people are on the street that, I mean, most of us don't know anything about the group you're working with, and so some of the very basic things, who are they, what ages, and you know, maybe you can just profile that a little bit for us. Thank you.
So I don't see anything as far as race goes out there, but I do see a lot of cliquishness, like, you know, AA groups, NA groups. A lot of times people get cliquish, they go off in their own little groups to get to know each other. So a lot of churches can be the same, a lot of organizations can be the same. We just try to work with everybody. Like I said, we don't come at this from a God's point of view, spiritual point. We come at this as non-judgmental, black, white, Democrat, Republican, you know, everybody's open. We just ask people not to project their views on other people. I was talking earlier with Harry and Steve, and I kind of said, I hope people don't know whether I'm a Democrat or Republican. I hope people don't, you know whether, you know, what church I go to or what I identify as, because I just want to be a person. I mean, I want to be open to everybody. So, the people out there demographics-wise, I mean, it's all over the place. You try to get a count. I know the Burns Coalition on Homelessness gets a count. I don't know what the exact count is. They say, especially with teenagers, like if a teenager doesn't have a place to rest their head more than 2 nights straight, they kind of consider that homeless, you know, because they're gonna bed hopping or basement hopping from here to there. with coronavirus hitting and everything going through the roof and prices going through the roof, we're seeing a lot more people in cars. So once again, the judgmentalness comes out. We see people parking on our street and they're sleeping there overnight, and then they get up out of the car and they walk to the wall out in front of a truck and they urinate on the wall, and then they're brushing their teeth and they're, so that affects me too. You want to help people out, but people need to help themselves out and have respect for themselves and respect for other people. So it's a very difficult, thing to do. Helping people out and stuff like that, not being judgmental, not, giving people that kind of grace. So, but like I said, right now, when I walk the streets, I see a lot more people living in cars. A lot of people lost their apartments, lost their houses, and that's the last thing to go.
So in the late 90s and the early 2000s, there were a lot of homes, people were underwater, they were just abandoning their homes. And so the homelessness became almost invisible because people were camping in these houses. And then there were a lot of fires and things because they were, starting fires in the basement. Is that still the case, or has the economy changed to where that's changed itself,
Well, here in Reading, and that's an issue we have, like, we would put people up on Neversink Mountain, or people would go up on Neversink Mountain, and there'd be little niches here and there. We always tell people, you have a nice quiet spot up here, don't tell me where you're at. If you want to go down to the city and buy drugs and do drugs, that's up to you. We're not here to judge you, but when you're ready, we're here to listen to you, we're here to talk to you, and to get you the proper resources. But unfortunately, like I said, they don't keep areas clean and stuff like that. So then other entities out there would start kicking people out. We had a woman that was 24 weeks pregnant. We don't like seeing trash out there either. So we're trying to work with the other organizations and the city government and say, hey, why don't we go from Neversink Mountain down to Rack Bridge, because we live on the south side. We'll take care of that area. First Coalition and Homeless can take care of another area. We'll go out with a police officer and we'll give them grace. We want you to go to the, missions and stuff like that, shelters. But you need to keep your area clean. So we're going to come back every week, we're going to come back every other week, we're going to come back once a month, give them grace, and keep your area clean. We're going to let you stay. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out, so I understand that, but then where do they go? So now they're in the inner city, and they're setting tents up right on Court Street. They're in your face panhandling, they're down at the dollar store, and that's what we talk to the city about. It's like the people on the outskirts, kind of outside out of mind, we need to get out there and talk to them. You need to, but when you kick them out and they know where else to go, where they go. So now what do we tell people? Find an abandoned building. The worst thing in the world we should be telling people, but they have nowhere to go. We got people knocking on our door, and we kind of tell the homeless, like they find out where we live, you're not welcome here. We're willing to help you out. You can't just show up. But we develop in relations with people, not, Paul, where do I go? I'm afraid they're going to come up, they're going to tear my stuff apart. And then, the people are dying out there, stuff like that. We develop these relationships, the people are dying. And I talked to one gentleman right before Thanksgiving, and we talked planning on hiking and getting together and stuff like that. And then,
he came to his ex-wife came to the giveaway, and usually if one shows up, I'll let him get for, 2. And I said, oh, hi, are you getting for 2? You and Jason. And tears just rolled down her face, and that's when she informed me that he passed away. So, like I said, it's just building that relationship. So I do Panera Bread and microwavable meals at the giveaway, and that's where the people come first. I actually had to step away because you become close to them, you get attached to them. They're just like you, they're just like me. So, and unfortunately, nowadays, we're hearing that way too often. So-and-so passed away, so-and-so OD'd. You get close to people.
Last one.
One more question.
Good evening. I just want to, there are so many people that come there from so many different backgrounds, whether it's the inner city, whether it's the suburbs, whether it's the country. What you have with a lot of churches, you have territorial. Me, my church, what we do, we're all about us, and let them take care of them. And you're seeing that. Not only, you're just seeing it all over the city, and different attitudes, And it's sad, it's really sad. But a lot of people that we're seeing down there come from all different backgrounds. And some of them share it, and some of them don't. But you just ask, like, where you're from, and then they can give you an idea. Oh, okay. So a lot of people think that it's people from the inner city that are coming. Yes, that is true, but there's people from the suburbs and the country and from all over. And it would be nice to see that the churches will get, and the synagogues, get more involved, you know, and reaching out. And even just driving down there, you know, just driving down there, dropping something off, or just saying hello, you know, and seeing the different variety of people that are there. And just, you know, just reach out in some way, in your way, in the best way that you can, because you will truly be a blessing.
Thank you, Paul and Sandra. Your personal situation and your outreach program has sensitized all of us to our need to be caring for our neighbors, and we appreciate your being with us. Let's give them a round of applause. Our Spirit on Tap programs are really simulcast and they're available on YouTube. So if you want to check them out, see Steve, he's our technical guy, and he'll let you know how to do that. Also, in addition to our future programs, we have the conference minister of the Pennsylvania Southeast Conference, the Reverend Bill Worley, will be our speaker in May. And if you're not on our mailing list and you want to get announcements about our future programs, not only for this, but all the spiritual exploration programs, please put your email address on here and write legibly so that I can read it. If you're already on the mailing list, don't worry about it. Also, your contributions, there are 2 baskets on either end. We welcome your contributions. And if your organization wants to make a contribution to Paul and Sandra's program, speak to them directly, and they will appreciate that. Also, we're in the process of developing our programs for our next season. So if you have any ideas, you can either email me or write it on a piece of paper and hand it to me. Steve and Bob and I will get together and we'll map out our programs for Spirit on Tap. Our contemplative spirituality program and our Soul Cafe are really in the process of development as well. So if you want to speak a little more informally, let me know about that. Steve, you have anything you want? Our next month's program. Steve?
Yeah, next month's program, our new, fairly new, it's been about a year, Associate Conference Minister, Reverend Kevin McLemore, is going to be talking about his experience, Christian coming out experience. And I think it's because it's one of those issues that folks still argue about. I think it'd be worth coming and hearing what he has to say about his movement from more conservative Christianity to where he is today. So I hope you'll join us for that. And the information is right here if you'd like.
Thank you very much for being here, and have a good night.